What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another weekly close here. Of course, we're looking at Bitcoin today. Big developments in the chart. A key level came into play here again that we've been looking at here for weeks now. And then, of course, we also have to look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, a chart that is pushing hard towards the key levels that we've been looking at here all along as our target area from where we then expect Bitcoin dominance to top out. And this one we will look at the end of the video, so make sure to stick around until the end to get the most out of this. And hey guys, to any of you new followers, a warm welcome as well. Nice to have you here. If you enjoy the content and the breakdown today, then consider joining us here in Team Bitcoin Easy by hitting that subscribe button, and then while you're down there, help me out. Smash up that like button, and to get notified, make sure to activate that notification bell as well. Right guys, now without any further ado, let's dive into the charts. Right guys, kicking things off on the weekly chart as per usual here for the weekly close. That's the key chart that we got to look at today, and there we're going to go through the confirmation levels. And I promise you at the end of the video on the 4-hourly chart, we're going to see a very, very dangerous and very scary formation right now that could confirm all this downside here that I've been talking about throughout the last few weeks and months here on the channel, where I told you guys that I am biased towards a correction and consolidation throughout the summer and a continuation of the bull market in the Q4 of 25 or even Q1 of 26. Of course, guys, that does not mean that I'm completely bearish on Bitcoin and that I'm unwilling to change my bias. The opposite, guys. If I see traders doing this, that they stick to their idea and they defend their thesis, even though it's been invalidated, that gives me a clear sign that that's someone I don't even want to pay attention to, because they're clearly just standing in their own way and just trying to be right and fighting their own ego. So as a successful trader, of course, it's always nice that you're right most of the time, but you gotta realize as well that trading is not a game of certainties, it's a game of probabilities. And that means that we take an L more often than we want, and it's very, very much down to our psychology if we can take it or not. And a lot of these guys, they're just huge crybabies. Whenever their thesis gets invalidated, they start making up excuses for what the economy did to them, for what the market did to them, and that everything turned against them and their ideas. And yeah, guys, don't listen to these guys. They are just big, big crybabies. And what we got to be is open to the opportunity when it arises. And that also means that we cross a certain pivot point that then invalidates our thesis, and that we see it as an opportunity and take advantage of it. And here the point would be, clearly, if we get back above 109,000 bucks on a weekly closing basis, then we start looking very, very bullish here. And here right now what we can see is that we're resting above a key support level here, prior highs here from January on a closing basis. That's the exact candles where we then ended up printing our previous 109k top. We lost the overall top here from those previous all-time highs here, where we printed our first top in December. That's where we've been resting on in the last 4 weeks here. We dropped down below it here now. We're right here on edge with the 23.6, also on the Fibonacci retracement for the current uptrend. And the 23.6 here really is the line in the sand then. And we want to stay above 104,000 bucks here ideally, to stay in this range here and then to have another crack at the top. But everything is pointing to the downside now, and that this key area of interest here comes into play. We've been talking about it a lot here on the channel, as my bias is that we go down lower. I've also been mentioning my targets for this correction and consolidation here for Bitcoin, and that's here right down here in the 91 to $88,000 range. So from a support and resistance perspective, we can see that this has been massive support here, turned into resistance. Then if we take the Fibonacci retracement of this current ascending channel here, right, there we retrace that whole thing from bottom to top right now. And there we can see that we have the 38.2 lining up there perfectly right at $88,000. Also the 61.8 of this Fibonacci retracement, the smaller one here for the local uptrend or the current uptrend. And then of course also here the previously mentioned dynamic support line, all in this area. And when we come down there, or if we get down there, then I expect the 50-week SMA also to be there at that time. And guys, that is of course always the decisive indicator here. Every time we put in new all-time highs and then close below it, not wick below it. We wick below it many times here, even throughout this cycle. But once we close below it, usually or always, that's the indication that the bull market is over and that we're going down to a bear market lows. So everything lining up here in the area, and that is still my target here. And once again, to invalidate it here, the only way to do that right now is to break the current tops here on the weekly chart in the coming weeks. Right guys, let's go down to the daily chart, and then we wrap it up on the 4-hourly chart before we go over to Bitcoin dominance. Here we can see we're right on the line in the sand here. If we look at it from a price action perspective, we've basically been trading sideways here in somewhat of a descending triangle, where we put in the first stop here where we printed our current all-time high, then printed a lower high here, but we're still holding the overall low. That still gives us hope here within the range. And that's the pivot point then to the downside. If we start breaking below $101,600 on a daily closing basis, then very likely that we come down to lower targets here. And the first area that I expect to get somewhat of a bounce off from is here somewhere in the $98,000 range. Then we can see the 38.2 here on the Fibonacci retracement for the current uptrend here. And that, of course, a very strong level from that perspective. And then if we take out some moving averages as well, and we see just below there, we have the 200-day SMA. So key area here between $98,000 and $96,000. And if we then don't get a bounce here and manage to reclaim this area here of $101,600, then likely that we continue down here to that weekly support level that we just looked at a few seconds ago. So key level here, and that is the decisive area here right now to the downside, and to the upside. Here's our clear pivot point. You can see we have a local downtrend here within that lower high formation, and here you can see locally that's the previous high here in our downtrend. Therefore, the pivot point here to break right at $106,900. If we see daily closes above there, likely that we at least challenge here the dynamic resistance line here connecting these two tops. So the $109,000 to $110,000 area. And then any breaks above the prior high there, then of course breakout out of this formation here as well, and then likely continuation towards new all-time highs and towards the area of $118,000 to $120,000, which of course we established a few weeks back by measuring different price targets here using different tools, and specifically also the Fibonacci extensions. I'll get back into that in the coming week and we look at those levels again, and if we find confluence for those targets using other indicators as well. Right guys, that's basically it here on the daily chart, and then let's see what's happening on the 4-hourly chart. As I told you guys, there's a very scary formation right now, and there we can see it right away, those two moving averages, right? Just a few months ago here back in April, this is the exact moment here where we identified a massive rally, upcoming rally for Bitcoin, since we had a 100% hit rate throughout the entire cycle so far that we track back here for golden crosses, where the 50 EMA crossed the 200 EMA here on the 4-hourly chart, and now we just had a death cross. And if we track that back here from October 2023, so almost for the last couple of years here within this cycle, there we can see here we have our first death cross, followed by massive downside. Let's go further. Here we had another death cross, you can see, followed by further downside here for Bitcoin. Continuing, here another one, huge downside for Bitcoin, and so on guys. You can see here, this has a massive hit rate as well, and very likely that that also then of course has a 100% hit rate here, just like the golden crosses. So there we can see all of these so far have been massive indicators for huge pullback here for Bitcoin. And right now we can see that the last one is that we had up here, following the $109,000 top here, right? There we had another death cross that brought us down here to our $74,400 price target. And right now, after this golden cross here, now we experienced another death cross. So of course, by statistics, 100% hit rate, that's very solid. And that also plays into the favor of our current buys here, that we see more downside for Bitcoin. And here we can see it on the smaller time frame as well, down here in the $98,000 to $96,000 or $95,000 range. We have strong support from a price action perspective here, horizontal support and resistance in that area, but likely that we continue downwards then to this area here, somewhere in the $90,000 to $88,000 range. Of course, here we can also identify a clear pivot point to the upside. If we cross back above these two key moving averages, we can basically invalidate this golden cross here. And then we need to get above here the prior high in this downtrend. And there we can see that is also a key range here coming from the daily chart, right at $106,000. And if we get above there, then can also clear the pivot point on the daily chart, the $106,900 level, and close above there on a daily closing basis. Very strong then, and then very clear that we're testing the previous highs again, at least towards the $109,000 to $110,000 range. Right guys, very clear here to the downside and to the upside everything. And there's of course now a very ugly formation here. And now let's wrap it up over on Bitcoin dominance. Alrighty, here our largest time frame that we always look at, the monthly chart, of course, the best way possible here to visualize the cycles for Bitcoin dominance. And here we see alt season 1.0, 2.0, and the current cycle here where we didn't have alt season 3.0 yet. Of course, altcoins rallied massively here in this bull market already, but we have not seen a huge new all-time highs for all these top players in the market yet. And that's what everyone is, of course, waiting for. And guys, I've been getting a lot of shit for this chart here. As you know, historically here on X and stuff, people have been throwing tomatoes at me, laughing at me and all that stuff, and telling me that no way stable coins and altcoins are taking such a huge chunk of the market that we're never going to see Bitcoin dominance in the range of 70% again. But guys, I told you, like, if the chart doesn't provide me with any data that points in the direction that we're seeing a change, then I will have to whip up my crystal ball to predict that, and I just don't have one. And for now, I can see here that 2017, alt season 1.0, we put in like a 71% top. Then we put in a higher high after that here in this mini bull market here, 2019, where we then went up all the way to 73% with Bitcoin dominance. And then here for the last cycle, we almost went up to 74%. And the last tops here also closed on an even high here, right at 70.8%. So that is still the target area here. All along it has been. And as long as this trend here is solid, you can see here on a monthly chart, such a strongly confirmed trend line. That is then, of course, your friend until the end here. And this is the key level down here that I'm looking at here. Once we start closing on a monthly closing basis below 60%, then there's nothing in the way anymore really to come down here to the 40 to 35% range where Bitcoin dominance always bottomed out. And while approaching that area, that's usually also when the top was in for Bitcoin and the crypto market. You can see here, this massive candle represents December 2017. That is, of course, when Bitcoin printed the $20,000 top. And then here from that 73% top here for Bitcoin dominance, almost 74% in 2021. This massive candle here was April 21. You can see here also in that similar range as we were in 2017. That's when Bitcoin printed the 65K top. And then down here was November 21 when we had the 69K top. So that range down here always been the area where then the crypto market and Bitcoin topped out and we went down to a bear market lows. So really, really clear here to see right now that from this perspective here, really, it's just looking like we're going back up there towards 70 to 74%. And guys, there's many ways for Bitcoin dominance to go up and many reasons why Bitcoin dominance is going down. People always say that Bitcoin dominance, for example, only drops when money starts flowing into altcoins. And whenever Bitcoin dominance starts dropping, people scream alt season, but that's just not the case. There's still a lot of people that are flocking into stable coins when Bitcoin starts dropping. So therefore, a Bitcoin dominance drop can also be caused by a drop in the price of Bitcoin, right? There's two scenarios always. And therefore, the market leader, the key chart to always look at is still the Bitcoin chart. And as long as Bitcoin is moving down while Bitcoin dominance is moving down, no money is flowing into altcoins. That's just how it is in the crypto game. And if you don't know that yet, that probably means that you're not paying enough attention to the charts and to the history and the data, and that you got to put in some more work to become more familiarized with what's going on each cycle. Right guys, now into the smaller time frames on the weekly chart. Very similar, a solid trend here that's still very much intact. You can see this parallel channel here basically coming from our bear market lows where Bitcoin then went into a massive bull run down here, November 22. Now we're right here at the resistance line again. And then if we get a breakout out of a bullish trend, right? This is already bullish. So if we get a breakout out of here, that means the momentum is picking up. Then we can move up in a really fast manner and reach that 70 to 74% range in no time. That can happen within a couple of days then. So keep your eyes on this resistance here, right in the area between 66 and 66.5%. If we start getting breaks above there and closes above there, then guys, Bitcoin dominance will go extremely crazy. And then we can see our top very soon. To the downside here, we can see we're consolidating above the prior highs here in this range. And now we just printed here another higher high and a higher low. So to the downside, we really want to hold here 63%. If we start dropping below there, then it's likely that we come down here to the 61.8, which is in alignment with the 50-week SMA here and the support of this ascending channel. And that then really is also the support for the trend that we have seen over on the monthly chart. If that then starts breaking down here on the weekly chart, then that's early identification that we're moving down towards our bottom range in the 35 to 40% range. So, and here now the daily chart, another very strong trend within a trend, right? And there we can see that we just broke the prior high here, printing fresh highs and headed upwards here as well on this chart towards 66.5% here. And this is massive if we get a breakout here. Basically the same thing that we saw on the weekly chart. And that's an early signal here that Bitcoin dominance is going parabolic and likely headed upwards towards that key range between 70 and 74%. 74% does not have to be the top, guys. As we've seen here in prior cycles, the top's been higher each time around, right? We can see here 71%, 73%, and then just below 74%. So we could go even higher than that. We could go towards 75 and 76% even. It becomes interesting once we then start dropping below the prior tops here. You can see here the prior cycle top on a closing basis right at 71%. 2 times in a row here, 2019 and 2021. If we get above there and then start here closing below that line again, then very, very likely that we have seen the top for Bitcoin dominance. And yeah, but for now, still the same thing, guys. Continuing upwards. This is also pointing in the same direction that we're seeing some more downside here for Bitcoin throughout the summer. And then hopefully the bull market is continuing in Q4 2025. How beautiful would it be if we get another nice top between Thanksgiving and Christmas this year. That's a wrap for this week's analysis, actually, not just today's. And I hope I made it very clear where the key confirmation levels are here for Bitcoin dominance, but also for Bitcoin, and that everything still looks the same, guys. Of course, in the last few weeks, we've seen a lot of hype from people talking about new all-time highs, 120K incoming and so on. A lot of analysts been getting impatient as well. And yeah, guys, important is always to keep an eye on these clear confirmation levels, to know where your pivot points are. You don't want to grip onto your thesis with dear life and just look like an idiot, right? And the only thing you can do to do yourself a favor is to be aware of what the chart is telling you, and not just to grip onto something just because you've been posting about it on social media. That, in my opinion, whenever I see traders or analysts on X and so doing this kind of stuff, that they're really holding on to their opinion, even though it's been invalidated, that just shows me that they're really immature and inexperienced, because if they would have a lot of trades under their belt, they would show their maturity as a trader by showing that they realize that the market is turning and that it's an opportunity on the horizon, instead of stabbing themselves in the back and missing out on these things by gripping onto their ego and their ideas from the past. Right, guys, a bit of a rant here to close the week. By the way, if you want to really learn how to read price action and to look at charts and to understand them the same way I do, then check out yesterday's video where I really broke it down. I went through everything from top-down analysis to everything within a top-down analysis, such as horizontal lines, and of course dynamic trend lines, as well as chart patterns and candlestick patterns. And I brought it all together to give you a very clear plan and checklist how you can go along with your analytics on different charts and different time frames. Right, guys, I hope you enjoy your Sunday. Have a nice close to your week and your weekend. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow with another Bitcoin analysis. And we also had all the altcoins, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Sui, and Hype. So don't miss out on that. And as always, guys, happy trading and see you soon.